This is the end of the beginning. Welcome to today's show. Before I get into deep detail about everything going on the West Coast, what people need to know about FEMA, most people don't understand when they hear FEMA, they think it means, oh, the government's coming in to help us out because we're all, upended, thrown out of our homes. No. You ever see those old pictures of what they call concentration camps? Well, that's exactly what FEMA is, and I'm sure many of you heard over the years all the stories about the Walmarts that were shut down and there was weird, strange operations going on inside. Well, now it's all coming to a head. I just want to remind everybody, if you didn't subscribe to my other two channels yet, please do so now. One more strike in this channel, I will not be able to upload for quite some time, 2 weeks actually. So if you like my daily content, make sure you do that now. That way you don't miss out on any of my videos. All you got to do is pause the video, click in the description box, the 2 links, and make sure you hit the subscribe button. You could also find the links in the comment section pinned at the top. So what we're seeing now is weather weaponization. I've talked about it for years. Now we're seeing it in full force. Nobody's suspicious, of course, because they can use climate change as they're out, right? We just saw it in Maui. And people need to realize it's about more than just smart cities, okay? Yes, smart cities are part of the plan. Yes, they're flooding people out in California. They're using fires to smoke people out in California and other states. And they're also doing whatever they can to destroy the property that people are living on so that they can round them up and bring them into FEMA camps. So people need to realize inside of a FEMA camp, there is no life inside of a FEMA camp. It is not a temporary stay. It is a long-term stay. These people out there are like, well, the insurance company's going to get back to us and I'm going to get my home back. No, you're not. Okay, I'll show you these video clips. These people are absolutely insane if they think that a whole community that's houses get burned down, that the insurance companies are going to cover it. The insurance companies are going to claim bankruptcy and nobody's going to get anything rebuilt. They're going to be put into a FEMA facility for a long period of time. And inside those FEMA facilities, you will have to obey the rules, which means you will have to get a certain something injected into your body one way or the other. And that's why that's going to coincide with what we see this fall with the EG5, which backwards is 5G, which I've covered over on the website. But we'll get into that in deeper detail over there. Now, take a look at some of the stuff happening in California, including Newsom, who knows exactly what's going on, even talking about tornadoes and things like that. Take a look at the extreme flooding that's going on. Take a look at the wildfires that are going on in Oregon and Washington, how many homes are burning down yet again, and how many people are finding themselves upended with nowhere to go.
This morning, dramatic new video showing a massive mud flow in the San Bernardino Mountains. Firefighters running to safety as the boulder-filled mudslide barreled toward their station, taking out trees and anything in its path. Reports say those firefighters were not injured, but mudslides appear to be cutting off mountain communities in the area.
Some mud flows cutting off Station 99. From the lower portions of Forest Falls. You have 500 to 700 people, approximately residents that are having to shelter in their place.
Overnight, the National Weather Service warning of life-threatening flooding along the Malibu coastline with reports of water rescues in the nearby community of Spanish Hills as what's left of Hurricane Hilary slams Southern California. Forecasters have warned of potentially catastrophic mudslides from the storm. Mud and water also flowing into this desert community last night near San Bernardino. Palm Springs could see an entire year's worth of rain just from the storm.
The center of Palm Springs, all these palm trees and their palm fronds are flying all over the place. A tropical storm going through the middle of a California desert.
Several records for daily rainfall amounts were broken yesterday in the Los Angeles area, where public schools are closed today. The storm made landfall in Baja California, Mexico. Video shows fast-moving floodwaters swamping streets, washing away vehicles. And just as California braces for the storm, these lights swaying as Los Angeles was hit with a 5.1 magnitude earthquake.
Chief, I'm really sorry to interrupt you right now. Our studio is shaking right now, so not only are we dealing with a tropical storm, but it appears we're now dealing with an earthquake.
This is the first time we've had a magnitude 5 since 1932 in exactly this location.
There were no reports of any damage or injuries from the quake, and experts say it is not related to the severe weather.
And that storm also impacting air travel nationwide, with more than 1,000 flights canceled as of late yesterday.
I drove over here and watched 3 accidents on the freeway. quite literally, one in front of us, by about 30 yards, a pickup truck. And so, Mr. President, I appreciate your comments about common sense. Just do your best, be safe. If you don't have an essential reason to be out there, don't. And, you know, if you're passing the CHP, which I was with, maybe you want to slow down. It's certainly interesting times. Tornadoes, lightning strikes. I've got CAL FIRE worried about wildfires because of the winds, not just the tornadoes. Walk out of the OES, the Office of Emergency Services in San Bernardino, and check my phone and learn about an earthquake that originally came in at 6.0. Appears to be close to 5.1. There were over 13 aftershocks just in the drive over in the Ventura region. These are certainly interesting times.
The wildfires ripping across eastern Washington state are tonight unrelenting. Different blazes have been raging outside Spokane since Friday.
Oh, you're not doing anything to that.
The largest, the out-of-control Gray Fire, spanning more than 10,000 acres, tied to at least one death. Also burning the Oregon Road Fire and the far smaller Winona Fire. The trio fueled by excessive heat and high winds, destroying dozens of structures with thousands ordered to evacuate, like Melissa Thurman, who says her home burned down.
I can't even explain the feeling of knowing that like everything that you worked for is gone. You know, yeah, so there's going to be insurance and stuff, but it doesn't make up for, you know, what you see when you see all of your stuff turn to ash.
Today, Governor Jay Inslee touring an evacuation shelter.
This has been horrendous fires. The aridity, the wind, this fire moved 7 miles in one afternoon.
And earlier, the National Weather Service reporting the Spokane region's air quality was the worst in the U.S. and perhaps the whole world. Another challenge for people fleeing danger.
It was scary. I was shaking. My mom was crying. My dad was starting to cry because we don't want to watch our house go up in flames.
Some families holding on to memories as they leave so much else behind. Jesse Kirsch, NBC News.
So it's a frightening look at what's going on. And obviously, one of the things that they're doing that people need to realize, all the land that they're clearing out isn't just for smart cities. Okay, so these forest fires that are happening, that's opening up thousands upon thousands of acres. It's no different than when you see like somebody building a home, right? Let's use that as an example, right? And they buy a lot and the lot is filled with trees. You go, well, how are you going to put the home, right? Well, they hire a company to do what? The company comes in and removes the trees. It's a very expensive process to do that, which is why a lot of people can't build their own homes because they can't clear these lots out. So if the government has a plan to imprison us in these FEMA camps, they're obviously going to need to clear out land to do that. Lots of land. They obviously have this mapped out. In addition to the fact that we see a lot of the land that's getting burned down being land that's owned by people. Coincidentally, Bill Gates owns a ton of land in Washington. I'm sure none of that. I'm sure his actual property obviously wasn't harmed, but a lot of the land, like Oprah's, a lot of the surrounding land, which was all trees and, you know, just filled with, you know, trees and wildlife, just happened to get burned down conveniently so that they could roll these in, right? And these FEMA camps will probably get advertised as, oh, the celebrities are using their money to build these for people who have nowhere to go, and it's so kind of them to do it, and the people will fall right into the trap like suckers. So for those of you that don't know what a FEMA camp looks like, the mind control is so deep with the FEMA camp, as you're going to see in this video clip. I highly recommend you share this with people. But inside the FEMA camp, get a load of this when you see this clip. They actually have street names inside of the imprisonment camp. Paradise Way, Independence Way. Those are some of the roads inside there. Independence Way, Paradise Way. I mean, you can't make it up, right? And this is why I always call it Stepford wife syndrome, because people are under such dense mind control, such thick mind control, that they're going to be smiling while they're in prison and not even realize that they're in prison. They're going to be like, oh, okay, and yeah, and there's going to be military guards in there, and you ain't going to be able to leave, and everybody in there is going to have to obey the rules and eat the Soylent food product. And like I said earlier, of course, everybody's going to have the magic potion, but this is what the FEMA concentration society will look like.
I'm Giacomo Luca in Gridley. It's a project 2.5 months in the making, but now FEMA is putting the finishing touches on a community for 400 families that will house campfire survivors. FEMA crews have cleared the 72-acre site, running underground electric, sewer, water, and paved roads in a project costing in the tens of millions, building essentially an entire neighborhood in just 2.5 months. Survivors will live in these 1 to 4 bedroom housing units that look like this. 300 have already been placed. They'll come fully furnished and will look similar to this inside. FEMA's project manager says crews have exceeded expectations because they know just how important it is.
They're not walking between trailers. They're running from trailer to trailer to jump on the next project. You know, and that to me is pretty amazing to watch that kind of enthusiasm to help get the project finished on that pace.
For the past 8 months, we've told you stories of those who have lost their homes in the wildfire and have since been living in hotels, shelters, or with family and friends. The first family will move in this afternoon and a majority over the rest of this weekend. Meanwhile, crews are ready to bring in the final 100 units to complete this project.
So this is what they're doing. They're clearly using the weather as a means to evict people from their homes. Now, even in Maui now, the people whose homes did not get destroyed are being evicted from their property. They're telling people that it's unlivable land. Landlords are putting eviction notices up. Nobody's suspicious, though, of course, because nobody has a brain for the most part. And people out there are looking and they're like, oh, you know, they're going to put the smart cities. Yes, I've been talking about the smart cities for years. They're going to put smart cities in specific locations, specifically these cities that are going to get rebuilt. But there's also going to be temporary, wink, wink, long-term FEMA camps. And why are they going to have those? Well, they're going to have those because they're going to do it out of the goodness of their heart, because their citizens are going to have their homes burned down by the boogeyman, Mother Nature, but the government's going to step in and have all these facilities ready for us to go live. And everyone's going to go, thank goodness the government did this for us. Otherwise, we'd be homeless right now. And then you realize that you can't get out, that you're trapped in these, and you better obey the laws and the rules inside these cities. But you'll be thankful because at least you're not homeless anymore and you're living in one of these. And then you're never going to say, well, why did my house burn down? Why am I homeless? Because you'll never realize that the government's the one responsible for burning your home down. That the government is weaponized weather. The government is using direct energy weapons to create fires and do all of these things to destroy our lives so they can have more control over our lives. People think, oh, you know, they were just going to voluntarily do this, that they were going to voluntarily join and go into these prison camps, right? All the exercises over the years that I'm sure all of you have seen. And if you haven't seen, if you're new to all this stuff, you could even look up local news stations that are covering all the Walmarts that were doing FEMA operations, all this stuff inside. They were emptying out these places so they could run these experiments. What do you think? They did that for nothing? That they just did that and they were just, oh, they're just having a good time, and then that gets dropped. They were doing it way in advance so it wouldn't be extra suspicious, right? And those people are all trained, the military's trained to obviously keep us imprisoned in these camps. On top of that, we've seen all the pictures and the video clips over the years of all the coffins or caskets that have been lined up. You know, the plastic ones that look like a bin that you would get at Walmart and that you would store, you know, board games in or something, or Christmas ornaments or whatever in your garage. Yeah, those are for our bodies. Those are caskets, right? You ever seen them lined up all over the place? So this operation has been in place for a long period of time. Now, we're dealing with a time period where the distractions are just an overabundance of distractions with Trump, with Biden, with laptops, with indictments. So everybody's focused in on that stuff while the government is torching our country and blaming it on climate change. And it's funny because they're not even coming out and overly blaming climate change. They're just assuming everybody's going to assume that because they would never think that this technology exists, even though it does. And you can find out for yourself just by looking at government documents or things that have happened during war. And then, of course, like I've said over and over again, people would not realize that the government would do this to their own citizens, even though they should know better because they should see how the government's behaving and how much they hate us, Republican or Democrat, black or white, gay or straight. They hate all of us. Their books teach this. We're goyim. We're cattle to these people. Yet nobody seems to realize that, or they have a hard time understanding it. So I talked about the Stepford wife syndrome, right? I mean, looking at the street names in there, these are mind control tactics. It's almost like when you see the movie They Live, right? And you see all the signs when he puts the glasses on, obey, consume. Remember that in They Live? I'm sure many of you have seen it. If you haven't, right? He puts the glasses on, he can see everything clearly. He sees all the reptilian demon things. And then he sees all the signs, the newspaper, you know, obey, worship money, God is money, all this stuff. Look at it, it's the same thing. Paradise Way. So you're in a prison. Imagine you were in Alcatraz. right? You're in Alcatraz and you're like, you get your 15 minutes outside for recess, and then you're coming back to your cell and you're like, oh, where are you? What cage are you in? Oh, I'm in Paradise Way. Oh, great. What are you? Oh, I'm in Freedom Boulevard. That's what it's like. And these are mind control tactics to convince the people who are in these FEMA camps that, oh, this is great and it's wonderful. And it works. It truly works. People don't understand how subliminal messaging works. I mean, it should be called Prison Way. It should be called Non-Independence Way, but it's not. So these are things that are going to be done now. They're going to smoke people out in specific areas. Yes, they're going to be building smart cities, but they're going to be rallying people into these FEMA camps because so many people are going to be thrown out of their homes. So many people aren't going to have homes. And again, one of the reasons that I cover this, because I know people are like, well, you know, this is so depressing. Don't you have anything positive? I'm warning people so that they can prepare. Whether you want to be 10 steps ahead or 2 steps ahead, that's up to you. But I know what I'm thinking, and I know what I plan on doing and where I plan on being. And they're like, well, we got to do something to stop this. There's no stopping this machine right now because we've enabled this thing to happen. Because society is so stupid. 10 of us, 1,000 of us can't do anything about it. We're not in the military. We don't have the weapons that they have. However, there are things that will be done, like infiltrating these societies when they are created. And coming out on the other end of this is my goal. Not because I want to be here and be a part of this, because I want to help and I want to fight against this. So I'm waiting to come out on the next wave of this. But we all need to be aware and prepared. And that's why I cover this stuff, not to make you walk around your home shaking. You know, these idiots are like, oh, he just fear mongers and all that stuff. Well, you want to live in Naiveville? So when all this stuff happens, you're still going to deny that people like me were talking about it, trying to warn you, and you'll be like, oh, he was still fear mongering. No, this is called truth. This is called what's happening. I wouldn't have to, quote unquote, cover these things if the government wasn't doing these things to us. And when these things happen, like they happened with the outbreak, I covered it years in advance telling you that it was going to happen. And those videos were up, and people saw those videos years in advance on my other channels, and on somebody else's other channels. And people commented, like, how did this guy know? How did this guy know? Because it's all written. You could go through all the stuff that they talk about at these meetings. You could just use common sense and hear them constantly talk about this stuff. Gates, Clinton, Bush, all Obama, right? Telling you Zika's going to hit and all these other things, and then boom, right? And then a system of control is put in place. Rights are stripped, and then you have these idiots out there who are supporting rights being stripped, who want masks and want all this other stuff. So this is what we're headed towards. And we're headed towards the weaponization of weather is happening right now. Right? What do you think? It's a coincidence that Canada just happened? Canada's still happening. Then we fly over to Maui. That's happening. Now the whole West Coast, from California to Oregon to Washington State, are under extreme flood advisories, state emergencies, evacuations of homes burning down, and nobody's suspicious still. They're just like, oh, yeah, it's crazy times. You hear Newsom, he's like, this is unprecedented. This is crazy. Yeah, it's unprecedented and crazy because the government has never used weapons like this against their own citizens. That's why. It's not because the ocean levels are rising, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get with it at this point. If you're believing that narrative, then you're a sucker and you're already done and doomed. And you'll be willingly go and take the mark of the beast, and you'll willingly go let these people do what they want with your kids or your wife or your husband because you're a zombie. The rest of us, we're going to sit here, we're going to prepare, and we're going to be ready to fight the best that we can. Well, we know the trumpets are going to sound sooner or later. But until they do, we have a job to do, which is wake people up, make them aware, get them to realize that this is a spiritual war. Pick up your Bible, realize that this is about God and the devil, that this is written, this is prophecy that is occurring right now. So people need to realize this stuff and understand that FEMA camps have been a part of the plan for a long period of time, and it's not what you think. It's not, oh, FEMA's coming in, they're going to do a great, what do you think, you're going to go into a FEMA camp, and then they're going to, when they pull their outbreak in the fall or the winter, and they say, you have to have this or you can't live in the FEMA camp, you have nowhere else to go. You don't have a house to go to. I told you, and I've been saying it on the website for years, they are going to do whatever they can to get this certain thing that could edit your genes inside your body by any means necessary. This, what are people going to do now? You don't have a home. You don't have food. You're in a FEMA camp. It's the only source of food and water you got. And then they make it mandatory. People are going to be weakened and they're going to have to do it. When in reality, people should be banding together. But they're not going to let you out of the FEMA camps when you get in them. People need to know all this stuff. It's very important. So share this information. But at the very least, make sure, please, you subscribe to my other channels now if you haven't. It's very important you do that. Do that favor for me. And if you want to support this work, please consider becoming a Patreon. You can do $1 a month. You can do $5 a month. Or you don't have to do it at all. It's up to you. But it helps me produce more content It helps me, helps out the work that I'm trying to do and the message I'm trying to get out there. So consider doing that if you haven't, if you'd like to. It's not a big deal either way. They're trying to keep the content free here on YouTube. But obviously, the walls are closing in on our society. They're going to continue this weaponized weather. And we're just beginning here because, they're going to use hurricane season as a huge excuse. They're going to start flooding out Florida. They're going to start drilling Florida with this stuff. I mean, I don't even know what Newsom was talking about because there's no evidence of a tornado that I saw as of this recording in California. He's talking about tornadoes in California. Yesterday, I was talking about Sharknado, so how convenient. We got tornadoes, hurricanes, and wildfires all happening at once. I thought hurricanes would put wildfires out. Oh, the winds, right? That's what we hear now. The winds from the hurricanes are causing these rapid fires. Okay, right. In places where it's 50 degrees out. So they can make it up as they go. And then they just come out and they go, well, it's unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this before. And you go, well, why haven't we ever seen it? Well, it's climate change. It's never been like this. Oh, okay. And everybody just believes it. They hear the lie long enough, gets beaten into their head long enough, and they believe it as reality. The truth is your government's doing this to you. They're doing it to us. All the governments around the earth are doing it to their citizens, specifically here in America. They need to bring America to their knees. They know Americans aren't going to hand over their guns. They will if they're going into FEMA camps, though. You ain't going to bring one in there. So what are they going to do? They're going to take your property. They're going to use weaponized weather to destroy all our land and property and blame it on climate change and round us up. That's what's occurring right now. Be prepared mentally for this. Don't be like the woman in the video who's crying over the fact that her belongings burned. Is that tragic? Of course it is. Anybody's apartment or home that burns down and you lose things that you have in there, of course it's emotional. But that cannot be where your head is at this point. Your head has to be at, what are they trying to do? How do I survive? How do I get around this? How do I infiltrate? What can I do to make sure I'm not dependent on the government here? Because otherwise you will die of starvation if you're not prepared. You will die of dehydration if you're not prepared, because you're going to have to take the mark. You're going to have to do these things that they tell you to do in order to eat and have water. That's why they've rounded up all the land. That's why they've taken all the farmland, given the farmland to China. They want to bring America to its knees. None of these politicians, Republican or Democrat, are working to serve you. They're working to destroy you, destroy your way of life. The world, the earth hates us. They hate America. Okay, they look at us as spoiled, especially the government, spoiled brat. And there's a lot of truth to that because you can see how Democrats behave, their behavior. Right? And of course, there's some conservatives too, but mainly the liberal people are absolute psychopaths. They believe that they should have everything handed to them. Oh, poor me, woe is me. You're calling me the wrong pronoun, et cetera, et cetera. Insane stuff, right? So other people around the world are like, get them. This is just a disaster over there. And they're right in a lot of senses. But those of us who are not like that, who are awake, aware, who appreciate, what this country has been in a sense. I mean, there's a lot of horrors of this country, but there's a lot of horrors in every country. But, the freedoms that we have had and been able to enjoy with being able to work and do these things, they're all gone, okay? You have to obey now. And if you don't obey, you can't work, you can't do this, you can't eat, you can't have water. So people need to be very, very aware of it because that's what they're doing. I'm trying not to yell and raise my voice like yesterday because it does drive me nuts that people don't see this stuff. It drives me insane that they don't because it's so obvious. It's so convenient for the government, who is pretty much calling us all terrorists, that all this stuff is happening. And, we're going to come in and protect you at FEMA camps. Can't bring your gun there. Have to be a magic potion to come in. So people are like, I don't want to go in there. They're going to round you up. They're going to tell you that, well, you can't go on this land. The land is dangerous. The government says you got to come in here or else we'll just execute you. That's what it's going to lead to. So be prepared. Don't be weak, and don't worry about your earthly possessions. Worry about food and water, and obviously you and your family surviving whatever they try to do to your home and your pets. Because this is all, like God says in the Bible, like, do not store up treasure on earth. All this stuff is going to be burned. It's going to turn to dust. And that's being proven right now. I thank everyone again for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always and your families.